Hello and welcome to Undrafted, a Dynasty Game Theory podcast brought to you by OTC Fantasy. I am Scott Belanger, aka Jax Falcone. This is episode number 237. Let's roll. And this week we are welcoming Mr. Brett Whitefield on the program just after the Senior Bowl. Normally have Thor Nystrom. Scheduling difference doesn't get Thor on the show, although I'll be chasing Thor very, very soon. But Brett Whitefield brings all of the information from the Senior Bowl and way more. Of course, friends of mine at Fantasy Points, Brett Whitefield. You can find Brett on Twitter at BG Whitefield. Very easy. Brett Whitefield, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here. I am so pumped up to talk to you. What's going on?
Hey man, thanks for having me. Shout out Thor Nystrom for paving the way for me to come back on the show. I do a lot of spots, Scott, and it's rare that they like one stands out above the rest. And I remember our conversation last year was just a ton of fun. So I was honored when you asked me to come back on the show.
Thank you. Yes, I was blown away by that show as well. I thought you were great. And so, yeah, it was a ton of fun. The first Thor show that he did was like, he was at the Senior Bowl and I was like, I'd love to get some correspondence from the Senior Bowl. So I was doing a show. I can't remember who it was with, but like I had a guest and then we went like live to Thor and he was on his cell phone in the rain. and that was the conversation. It was pretty cool. It was like 20 or 30 minutes of me talking to Thor with him on a cell phone at the Senior Bowl in the rain. So, from meager beginnings, we are here in my mom's basement and you in a beautiful studio recording after the Senior Bowl. I guess I'll start by saying, what is your overall impressions of this class, but also I guess maybe just the Senior Bowl class in general? It leaves me wanting more. I'm sure that's kind of the general consensus.
Yeah. So the NFL draft, it's probably a little on the weak side for fantasy football purposes. I think the QB class this year is rough. I think everyone kind of figured that out by now. I think Mendoza is really the only guy you're going to count on to kind of be a starter for you in fantasy. And then after that, like, I think it's a really weak running back class, like ghastly weak running. Kind of reminds me of that Blake Corum year where I think he was my RB1 that year. Just like, yeah, you have Jeremiah Love, who's an exceptional talent. And then after that, it's like, look out. I don't know what we're doing. I do like this wide receiver class though a lot. And I think it's really deep. And I think there's I'm going to have a ton of day 2 grades in this year's wide receiver class. And I think tight end is another deep class, but there's not a ton of game changers. Like last year, I think it was pretty evident there's going to be 3 or 4 real, needle movers in the dynasty space. I don't think you're going to get that this year, but you're going to get some nice depth that in a year or 2 or 3, you might get some functional fantasy players out of that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, that feels spot on. Mendoza is going to go first overall. Any first overall pick in the NFL draft at the quarterback position is worth investing in, even if you don't believe in them. They tend to have a pretty long runway. There's a lot of investment in that number 1 overall pick. So they're going to do everything they can. They're usually getting year 2 starts, no matter how good or bad they are in year 1. So for those reasons, Fernando Mendoza will be a valuable, super flex pick in Dynasty. After that, while we're here, let's just chit chat about it because we can glaze it quick. Ty Simpson, to me, coming out is kind of a mistake. One of the things I do every year, and I'm going to do it here shortly, is the anatomy of. And the anatomy of is basically just sort of trying to, look at the elite players at each position and then finding things that they share in common. Well, one of the things that most elite quarterbacks share in common is way, way, way more college attempts than Ty Simpson has had. Just not enough experience at the college level for me to be trusting in him at the next level. Also, when I watched him, meh. I mean, I was not blown away. I mean, I didn't do film study. I just watched the game. I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not seeing huge talent, from an arm talent. It's not like, okay, it's raw tools guy. I don't know what it is with this guy. I mean, he hasn't really done anything for a long period of time. He had a pretty good one season it's not enough for me. I'm very, very dubious. Now he might be great, but there's not enough there for me to sink my teeth into.
Yeah, from a perspective of like you want a guy to be playing his best football when he gets to the NFL. I totally agree. He should have stayed in school. I don't think
Yeah,
he's ready. You know, if he, another good year of college football, and I
changes
think maybe
everything.
he's a first round pick lock this year, he might get in the first round, but only by proxy of there's no one else there, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, that's probably why he came out. He's looking at it like, hey, I'm the QB2 in this class, and there's really no one that's going to stop me. I mean, I'm guessing we're going to talk about the one guy that potentially could stop him from being QB2, but
Bingo.
that's got question marks of its own. So for Ty Simpson, though, I think he does have a pretty good arm. Maybe not so much, touch, but I think he's got a really zippy arm, a strong arm, and he makes a lot of NFL throws. That's on his tape. My biggest problem with Ty is the inexperience, one, and two, in the biggest moments of the biggest games, he just disappears. Like Carson Beck level bedwetting, not great, right? So I want to see him get better in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Poor Carson Beck. I mean, gets that face, and now also Brett Whitefield's dunking on him. The guy that could change it, of course, is not Carson Beck, but actually Trinidad Chamblas. Trinidad Chamblas, to me, is a very tantalizing prospect because of the sort of extra tools that he has, the escapability, the improvisational stuff, the winning time guy. I mean, he's proven to be a very clutch player in the biggest moments as opposed to some of these other guys. So he played big when he needed it most. He drove down the field, almost got himself, a championship. Was really, really good. So got to give him a lot of credit. But he's actually basically suing the NCAA so that he can stay another year and not come out this year. Now, if there was no NIL money, I guarantee you he would be coming out right now. There is no question about it. But there's $5 million roughly, that is what they're saying, on the table for him to come back one more year and play in the NCAA. I think he's basically saying, hey, look, if I'm a late first round pick, I'm making more than $5 million. I mean, I'm making more at college than I am in the pros. Might as well stay and take my money. I can't really argue with that, but I think your point that we were talking, and I agree with this, is he's not likely to get the draft capital next year that he was likely to get this year, unless, again, he balls the hell out, bro.
Yeah, he'd have to really ball out. I think next year's class. I mean, we say this every year, though. Next year's
Yeah,
class is stronger. We actually don't know.
right,
I feel like I've watched some of these guys. I do think it will be a stronger class, but to what degree, I don't really know.
right.
Chambers could very much be a part of that mix. I don't. It's really tough. Like $5 million's a lot, but like, what is a signing bonus for a top 40 pick? It's
Yeah,
got to be 2 million at least, right? 10,
yeah,
12 million. So he's playing with fire a little bit. I kind of would like to see him bet on himself and just say, screw it, I'm going to the league. The
yeah.
Rams will draft me at 28 or whatever, and we'll move on.
Yeah,
So,
no, I feel you. I mean, I wonder if he could get drafted in the sort of, higher than that, maybe even closer to the Bo Nix spot, somewhere in between there, the Kenny Pickett, spot, mid-teens. So, but maybe it's the Jackson Dart, spot that the Giants last year traded back in. It could be something like that for Chambliss. I don't think that teams are looking to invest, top 10 capital and player like him, nor Ty Simpson. I think Fernando Mendoza sort of sealed up the number one pick with the way he played down the stretch. He was really good, right?
oh, he was awesome. Everything you want to see in a franchise quarterback, he's got it. And the hardest thing for us to measure is what's going on between the ears, right?
Bingo.
And the glimpses we've gotten of him, it's special. The
Yes.
processing power, the way he gets through his progressions, all the interview. I know he's a little on the corny side, but
Yes.
he reminds me of like an Andrew Luck character coming out, where it's
Yes.
just like he's so invested into football. It's his whole life, and I really have good vibes with him. Feels like a really strong, number one overall type pick at quarterback. Maybe not as toolsy as like the Caleb Williams and the Drake Mays we've seen come through recently, but I think he'll make up for it with everything else.
I totally agree. Yeah. I was dubious the whole way just because, you looked at his sort of numbers before he got to Indiana this year. It was, pedestrian.
Yeah.
This year he really puts up some big numbers, but it's everything else that you're talking about that really shows that I think he's going to be a pro's pro. That he's going to be just. I mean, they asked him about the girlfriend thing. He's like, don't have time for that. It cuts into film time. We gotta, So he's just really into it, and for all those reasons, I think that's what you're looking for when you're going to make a big investment. He also presumably will get Clint Kubiak, who has been very solid for efficient quarterback play, which I think is what we're hoping to see from him in year 1 and 2.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kubiak, he's going to love coaching Mendoza.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of Kubiak. I think people were sleeping on him a little bit as a coaching prospect. Even his time with the Saints last year showed me everything I needed to see. When he had all the guys healthy on that team, they were like top 5 in every discernible offensive metric: EPA per play, yards per rush, EPA per rush, etc. Then the whole team died, and then it looked bad, the second half of the season. But that's what happens when your team dies.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Well, whether it be Senior Bowl, certainly at the Senior Bowl, but even in general for this class, I think the wide receiver is the cream of the crop. That's the position that I think has got the most talent in it, almost unquestionably. So, we'll start there. I'm going to ask you about some wide receivers. I'm going to start by talking about the very, very top of the class, and then we'll get to the Senior Bowl. But we're going to do that right after this. Welcome back to the program. I'm here with the great Brett Whitefield. Brett, we were going to be talking about the Senior Bowl, and I do want to get there, but we have a mutual friend, and that mutual friend is your boy Theo Greminger. I was on Theo's show this morning or yesterday morning, whatever, and he told me to ask you about a certain player. I'm not
Oh
even going to
Lord.
tell you who it is, but I am going to ask you it this way: who is your wide receiver one in this class overall? And I'm gonna ask it this way. I will say there's two ways to evaluate all of this. One way is for NFL, and one way is for fantasy. You can
Mm.
answer it either way, or take that context into consideration.
I already know where this conversation is going to go. That's okay.
Yes,
That's okay. Yeah, Theo's great, and he knows how to tee it up, so I
yes,
can say
sir.
controversial things without being controversial, I guess. My number one receiver in the class is Carnell Tate from Ohio State, pretty comfortably. In fact, he actually scored out as a better prospect than Teteroa McMillan for me, who was everyone's wide receiver one last year. I think he's awesome, and I think you actually look like you're. I know you get into the data quite a bit. I get
Yep.
into the data. I also get into the film. From a data standpoint, he's coming off of arguably the most efficient season in college football history as a wide receiver. His first downs and to touchdown ratio per catch is like unheard of. Yards per route run versus man, like every efficiency metric you could ever want to see in a wide receiver prospect, he's crushing. Um, to boot, I like the film. The skills are awesome. The explosiveness, the speed. I kind of reminds me of like an AJ Green in that he's very explosive player, but there's a smoothness to his route running that's just uncanny. He looks like a veteran wide receiver already. The ball skills are tremendous. The hands are excellent. He's strong, physical at the catch point. Pretty good at yards after catch stuff. I wouldn't say he's a demon there, but he's good enough. He's a chain mover. He's going to fight for extra yards. Unlike his former Ohio State counterpart Marvin Harrison Jr. So
Yeah.
I'm all in on Carnell Tate. I think he's awesome.
I can't argue with that. So we have our OTC wide receiver model that by the way, has been an incredible model for the use of fantasy football. It's eliminated players that have been, busts, and it has elevated players that have been gems like Puka and Tank Dell, things like that. So we've been absolutely thrilled with its efficacy. And I was talking to Jay Wood, who is basically the developer of this model. We certainly talked through a lot of the inputs, but he built the damn thing. And I asked him who he thought was going to be the model's wide receiver one. And I thought it was going to be Mekhi Lemon based off a lot of the things that he does really well. But he thinks it's actually going to be Carnell Tate. And we love both of these players. And, the more I look at Carnell Tate, and I'm sure when I turn on the film and do some film study, which I do eventually do, but I have not, I've seen him play. I understand how he plays, but I've not actually studied anything on film. But yeah, you're right, dude. His just to hit on Carnell Tate real quick. His NFL quarterback rating when targeted. Do you have any idea what it is?
Is it like in the 130s?
It's 151.8 this past year. It's 134 for his career, but this past year, to your point, nearly a perfect quarterback rating. I mean, there was one interception thrown his way. He was 12 out of 14 on contested catches this year,
Yeah.
85%. He's almost 70% on contested catches for his career. He's got an ADOT of 12.9 for his career, 14.6 this past year. I mean, when you talk about being that efficient it is unheard of. Now, he is playing alongside or
Mhm.
opposite of Jeremiah Smith. Does that help him? Look, you could say it helps him, but you could also say that if he had not performed, that, oh, it's because he played. You can make this cut either way. The fact of the matter is, it's hard to be this great and put up this much, this much, performance alongside that type of stud. So I think it speaks to him, and he was doing it, the last couple of years. He's going to come out early as a junior. I think you're right. I have no problem. He's going to be the first wide receiver selected in the NFL draft. I think that's probably a solved equation, right?
Yeah.
Right. So he's going to be the number one pick. I'm all good with that. Now, what I think might be a difference is that I have Makai Lemon there, and it sounds like you may not.
Yeah, and I knew that's where Theo was trying to get
Yes.
this conversation to. So, yeah, I'm a little lower on Makai than I guess consensus. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to consensus, but every time I talk to Theo about the guy, we get into a fight. So, I'm assuming I'm lower than consensus. I'm gonna have a second round grade on Makai. I'm not a hater, like an early second. So, I look at recent prospects that went in that range, like a Jaden Higgins or a Luther Burden, higher on Makai Lemon than those two guys. So hopefully that gives some people some comfort. There's some things I see on tape, though, that have given me a lot of concern. I think he's got really, really tight hips. And I know this sounds corny, especially for those listening that aren't necessarily film grinders, but the tight hips limit route running ability. The route running ability is really what separates you from the rest of the pack. That the ability to separate, make yourself an easy target, earn targets. And I keep hearing people throw around that he's a target earner because he played in a really high volume, low ADOT offense. I don't necessarily buy that he's a target earner right now. That's the negative side of Makai Lemon and why I'm a little lower on him than the rest. I just think he is physically capped in that way. The good stuff, though, is like if you're trying to mimic an Amon-Ra St. Brown or a Puka Nacua from a work ethic standpoint, from a grinder standpoint, like a guy who's just going to be awesome after the catch, he's going to give you everything he has on every single play. These are traits I love about Makai Lemon. He's great in the run game, even though he's a little undersized, 5'10", 5'11", 195. He's a monster to tackle at that size as well, similar to an Amon-Ra, similar to a Puka Nacua. These guys play with their hair on fire. Like, people forget Puka Nacua, he plays like he's 230 pounds. He weighed like 200 pounds at the combine.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's not a big dude, and so I see a lot of similarities between Makai, and I think he'll go higher, or at least in the dynasty community, he'll be ranked higher because people are chasing those next guys. But I'd like to remind everyone, Puka went in the 5th round, Amon-Ra went in the 4th round. So the NFL traditionally has not liked these guys in the draft. Luther Burden even, I would say, has some similarities. He fell all the way to the 2nd. I kind of predicted that as well when people were mocking him early on and like in the top 20 of the draft. So I think the NFL is kind of a little sour on these guys for whatever reason, even though they continue to be producers in the NFL.
I totally agree 1,000%. One of the things I've gotten into it with, certain people about this prototype. I mean, I had Pat Fitzmaurice on the program last week, and he's like, slot only. And yeah, NFL will look at slot only and say, no, that's not our guy. Even though, I mean, guys like JSN and Amon-Ra have proven to be great. Now, JSN did get the draft capital. He also was spectacular. I don't think Makai Lemon is on the JSN level as a prospect. So I think but I do think that they underdrafted Amon-Ra in the NFL. I mean, clearly they did, right? They overestimate, speed and athleticism at the wide receiver position with the NFL scouting industrial complex. Why do they do that? Well, they do that because there's efficacy past being targeted.
Yes.
There's guys who run fast, who change the game and have to make safeties play in a different way. And that's valuable for an NFL team, but not valuable for my fantasy team.
Look at Jameson Williams. By the way, you are speaking my language. This is what I talk about on my show. So This is great. Look at Jameson Williams for the Detroit Lions. He barely goes over 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. I think he caught not even 60 balls this year, if I'm remembering it correctly.
He almost perfectly replicated his last season, by the way. It was crazy how close he came to exactly doing what he did last year, which is kind of a little bit of a dunk on me.
Right. Well, point being, though, is like what he does for that team, snap in and snap out without ever being targeted, is so valuable to the Lions, yet the fantasy community will never reap those rewards. He'll be a 55, 60 catch, 1,000 yard, maybe 10 touchdown guy if the TD variance goes his way one season. I think, which it has the past two, right? So,
But
but
he's
you
awesome.
know, yeah, but he's awesome, and he
Right.
affects defenses. That they fundamentally have to change the way they play you when a
Yes.
guy like that's on the field. So that's why, to your point, that's why guys like Makai Lemon fall down the board a little bit from an NFL standpoint. It just doesn't work X's and O's wise as much.
Right. If that and he might end up being the wide receiver one in this class with fantasy points, which is
Yeah,
what the hell we do, by the way. That's the name of your frigging company, for crying out loud. But you get my point. There is a difference, and understanding that difference is valuable no matter how you want to look at it. Draft capital, all these things. So we see it the same way. Now, in terms of Makai Lemon, if you were looking at just from a fantasy perspective, would he rank differently than he does for you from a draft perspective? Because you talk about a second round grade. I totally respect that. I really do, because I understand it, I see it, and you're probably closer to accurate than someone saying, "Oh, he's wide receiver one in this class." Like me, fantasy guy, I'm not saying that he's going to go first in the NFL draft. I get that side. Do you
yeah.
think that on the fantasy side, he has a chance to be the actual wide receiver one in terms of production when it comes right down to it in a PPR setting?
Yeah, that's a great question, and yeah, I will rank him higher in the. So I put out two rankings. I'll do, my prospect guide is just how I view it, because you gotta remember I'm an NFL guy before I was a
Right.
fantasy guy, so I came into the fantasy side of it late. So my prospect guide is just here's how I think of things in terms of the NFL. I do O lineman, D line, and I do the whole thing, right?
Exactly.
And then so the big board in there will be just NFL related content, but then I'll put dynasty rankings out. And I'll probably have Makai Lemon as my wide receiver 2 or 3 for sure in
Fair.
the dynasty rankings. So, yeah, like I think about him compared to like a Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson's a projection.
Right.
He's a very physically gifted, athletic player who really doesn't know how to play football yet. I'm going to have Makai Lemon way ahead of him in my dynasty rankings, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I mean, because look, Jordan Tyson is an enthralling
Yes.
prospect. Talk a little bit about Jordan Tyson, and what you see as because here's I would ask, I guess, now that we're here, what is it that's been holding him back? It sounds like you think that he just doesn't have nuance yet. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I don't think he has many developed skills that translate to good play on an NFL football field. He has all the physical traits, and so people always conflate traits and tools and skills. These are all words we
Right.
throw out. So when I think of skill, I think of developed attributes, like things you can work on to get better. When I think of traits, I think of physical gifts that either you're born with or you have to work out to obtain. So he's big, he's fast, he's strong. Those are physical traits. He can jump really high. So those are all exceeding the class in most ways. The developed skills, however, are lagging behind, I would say, some of these other top receivers in the class, where you don't really see a route runner. Most of that Arizona State offense is completely predicated on space, getting you into space, letting you go to work after the catch. They will tee him up some go balls or some fades from the slot here and there, try to manufacture some stuff downfield and just go athlete on athlete. That does work at the college level. But as far as route running and the things that will really lead to translatable success in the NFL, he's a little bit lagging. He's still going to go really high in the draft, and I'm still going to give him a first round grade when it's all said and done. But he's as much of a project. Think of like an Xavier Leggett.
Mm.
Now, a little bit different. Leggett's more of like a meaty, like 230-pound bruiser, where Tyson's a little bit leaner. However, they're both complete projections in that they didn't really know how to play ball yet, and they were kind of still figuring it out. It hasn't really worked for Leggett. I hope the fate is not the same for Jordan Tyson.
Well, I mean, in Jordan Tyson, if I'm just talking about profile, Jordan Tyson, first of all, was a early producer as a freshman,
Sure,
was
that's true.
was really good. Leggett did not do that. Leggett was a fifth year
Fifth,
senior, I'm pretty sure.
fifth year
Uh,
breaking. Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And this is a third, early declare. So, for those hearing that, don't get too alarmed. But I understand what you're saying, from a film perspective and a eyeball perspective. But once you put the metrics in there, there's a lot of advanced metrics that Jordan Tyson possesses. Now,
Totally.
talking about Makai Lemon, let's get to the Senior Bowl, because his teammate was there, and I think in
Mm.
some ways he was maybe the best wide receiver there, although I don't know if he performed that well there. But I think he was your number one ranked wide receiver at the Senior Bowl. I got no issue with that, as I think he's fine. And again, this isn't a Terry McLaurin moment though. You're right. We didn't have that moment at the Senior Bowl, did we?
No, and in fact, being completely transparent, I think I came away from the Senior Bowl feeling less good about Jacobe Lane.
Yeah.
Now I'm never going to throw out 4 years of college tape
over one day, right?
Yeah, three practices, right? I'm not going to do that. But some of the concerning things that you would imagine you get with a 6'4", 190-pound receiver that USC did a really good job hiding did manifest in practice 3 different days. So, and what I'm talking about is like when you are that slight and that long, you get bullied a little bit. And the coaches did a really good job of putting him into situations where he would get pressed and get beat up at the line of scrimmage and trying to figure out how he would respond to that. And it wasn't pretty. He got bullied several, like there were a couple routes he didn't even get off the line of scrimmage. It was, and those 1-on-1 drills, 7-on-7, those are kind of designed for the offense to win, right? Like you're more evaluating receivers in those circumstances than you are corners. And so I was just a little concerned with that. Now, the contrary, when he was given a free release and they put him at Z and he wasn't getting pressed into oblivion, I mean, he was almost unguardable. I mean, the route running, the length, there's a reason would he have 14 touchdowns in 2024, something like that?
12,
there's a reason he led the nation in receiving touchdowns that season. So that was apparent. The ball skills, the ball tracking, all of it is incredible. And so then you're just left with the puzzle of, well, how much weight can he sustainably add to his frame without losing some of that athleticism? And if a team figures that out, they're probably going to want to draft him very high because I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, his profile screams, oh, good. He's a good outside player. He'll play in the NFL, but he probably won't ever be an alpha. And that's probably what we're getting. And unfortunately for dynasty, players hearing this stuff is kind of like me just pouring cold water on them. They don't love hearing that. They want me to say, here's a sleeper that's going to become Puka Nacua. That's what they're waiting for. They just want that. That's what we all want. But generally speaking, and I say this all the time, the class you're looking at is going to have, 1 or 2 superstars, 20 good players, and then a bunch of bums. And that's what you get, almost every time. The idea that you're going to get 5, 6, 7, alpha predators in a single class is just not going to happen. And so, yeah, I think he probably profiles as an outside player. They did play him mostly outside at USC as Mekhi Lemon manned the slot. I don't even think he necessarily profiles as anything but an outside player. Is that what you also agree with?
Yeah, he's at that length. I mean, I don't even know why you would play him in the slot.
Exactly.
It's not like he's a powerful guy, He's a little bit more finesse. You're going to get him on the outside. So.
Yep. Do you think he's going to run fast?
I have trouble with that. I actually was talking to Thor Nystrom about this because I see really good long speed. So when he runs a go route, hits a good clean stem, and gets into that long stride, he runs past corners. Problem is, I don't think he's got good start-stop ability, or I should say start ability. I think the stop ability is okay. So 40 yards really isn't that long. Some go routes are longer than that. So I think that back 10 of his 40 will be really good, but I think that first 10, the 10-yard split everyone references, I think will be pretty bad. So probably a modest 40 overall, like a 4.5, 4.55, something like that, with a good back 10.
That makes sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense. Well, that's what we're looking at with Jacobe Lane. The guy that actually made me sort of lean forward in my chair that everybody else did was this Ted Hurst. Ted Hurst is, basically, I think the team he played for went like 1-11. The quarterback play was atrocious. And he still had 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, 14 yards a catch this past year. He has 2 straight seasons of over 100 targets and over 950 yards and over 6 touchdowns. He has 15 touchdowns in his last 2 seasons. So he did do good things on the football field. Physically, I guess he looked really good in terms of just sort of athletically out there. What else did you see from Ted Hurst? And maybe he's a sleeper that we're looking for.
Yeah, when I did his college tape leading up to Senior Bowl, I was blown away by the speed and athleticism for a smaller school guy. To the point where I was like, all right, something's up here, and he's going to get punked at the Senior Bowl, and it's a nothing. Then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and by far the best cornerback play he's ever seen in his career at the Senior Bowl. There was a lot of good corners there. He torched them all. Reminds me a little bit of the kid Seattle drafted last year. I don't know why his name's escaping me.
Torrey Horton.
Torrey Horton. There we go. Just an absolute burner, ball skills downfield. I would say he's actually a pretty good route runner. Like, I think his release package is really developed. Some of those in breakers and shorter routes he doesn't really have a handle on yet, but you see the ability to sink his hips and explode despite the long frame. But I was really impressed with him at the Senior Bowl. Like he I would say acquitted himself very well. And allegedly, I mean, and I haven't confirmed this myself, but the word on the street in Mobile was that he had turned down NIL offers to transfer up this year, for the sake of loyalty to his program at Georgia Southern or whatever, or Georgia State. Sorry,
Yeah, Georgia State. Yeah.
That's wild if true, because that's a risky bet considering they were a really bad football team and they went 1-11. So I was really impressed with him though, and he looked awesome on the field.
Yeah, I mean, his quarterback rating when targeted, despite him being really, really good, was only 75.4 because there were 7 interceptions thrown his way. Look, I think it was really hard for him to do what he did at Georgia State because of how bad they were. He was the shining light there. I mean, everything else, you look at, just go pull up Georgia State's stats. You'll be like, there was one dude, and that was him. I wonder now, one of the things that happens at the Senior Bowl is you're kind of around the scuttlebutt and the whispers and the commentary. Do you think that the NFL intelligentsia is going to value this guy and make him a day 2 draft pick?
If you remember what I said at the top when we started talking wide receivers, I said I'm going to have a bunch of day 2 grades. Well, I think that's true for this guy, and I'm going to have a day 2 grade on him. Problem is, they can't all go day 2, right? Nope. And so if we get to I think the magic number most years is 17 receivers drafted day 1, 2, or 3. Last year we had a huge lull because it was a bad class, but historically, the last 5 years, it's usually that number. If we do get to the 16, 17, I think there's a good chance Ted Hurst is one of those guys that has their name called on day 2. Yeah, but that's a big if,
I think a lot of times too, the NFL sort of leans towards, big program guys, just because of the relationships and they can ask the coach, and I don't know. There's just more Jacobe Lane is probably going to be drafted ahead of Ted Hurst, and that doesn't mean he's better. It's just because it's USC, big program, pedigree, the whole thing. And that's why I asked the question about Ted Hurst. What was the talk of the town? Because if all of a sudden everybody's like, no, this is a real guy. Forget all that nonsense. Forget all the 1-11. Forget all the small school. Forget all of that. We believe he's a good player, then there'll be a little bit of a different, conversation around Ted Hurst come draft time. Because here's the thing, I as much as I may think this is a good player, if he gets drafted in the 6th, 7th round, you can kind of throw him out with the bathwater. I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to make his way onto a football field. I mean, it's going to have to be a real inside straight draw. Whereas if he gets, early 3rd or something, just day 2 capital, hey man, he's got a shot.
Yeah, for sure. I typically teams, it seems like, I don't know how much you study past drafts, but you see that comp pick range at the end of the 3rd round.
Yes.
And I know that's a little later than what you were hoping with early 3rd, but teams are, for whatever reason, more willing to take a project player in those picks, almost because it's they're playing with house money.
Feels like an extra pick. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an extra pick. I could see Ted, and there's a couple guys actually probably that we'll talk about, getting into that range where it's cool. We got the needs out of the way. Now we're going to take a shot on a high ceiling project player.
Well, let's go to that next one, which is Ty Montgomery, the Tyron Montgomery kid out of, I don't even know what the hell the name of the school is, John Carroll or whatever the fuck. Yeah. When I first looked up this guy, I thought his name was John Carroll. I'm like, all right, let's check out this John Carroll fella. Whatever. I'm not even joking. I was like, well, no, what's going on? But apparently he was dope, and he actually profiles a little bit more of a inside outside player. He really turned a lot of heads too. So 2 sort of small school, nobody guys go out there and really, participated with the big boys and looked like they belonged for sure. Tell us about Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about Ty Montgomery. For one, when you walk into a practice and you have I did tape study on every guy there except for the super late ads. He was one of the super late ads. And then all of a sudden, this dude starts making plays, and you go, "Who the heck is that guy? He's number 7.
Who is he?"
I have to pull out the paper roster, Tyron Montgomery from. I have no idea.
Right.
So that happened a couple times. I'm like, okay, 7 again. What's his name again? Tyron Montgomery. Okay, cool. And then it happened so many times. Finally, I'm like, who the hell is this? Because I Google it. Like Tyron, I'm looking at his stats. In 2 seasons, he had 3,000 total yards and 36 touchdowns.
Yes.
And I'm like, what in the world? So fun story too. One of our directors of quality control at Fantasy Points Data is a John Carroll alum, played defensive end there. This is Scott DiBenedetto. He worked in the Cleveland Browns organization for a decade before I stole him and brought him into our fold. And
Love
so
it.
I start texting Scott. I'm like, who is this kid? You know him? He's like, yeah, I know him. Great kid, awesome player, yada yada. I'm like, all right, well, I got to set up an interview with this kid. So I was the first person. They do the post practice interviews. I just, I located him, sprinted to him. I had to be the first one in. Wanted to get this kid's backstory.
Yeah.
Scott, he hadn't played football for the first time until the fall of 2023.
Yes.
Football camp, like summer camp, had already come to a conclusion. The team was starting their season when the coach at Nicholls State found him. He was a LSU basketball walk-on.
Yep.
And this coach at Nicholls State saw him playing flag football and approached him. Was like, "Bro, you're 5'11". I'm paraphrasing, by the way.
Right.
You're 5'11". Basketball's not for you. Come play football for me." He had never played in high school or nothing.
It's crazy.
And with only 2 full seasons of college football, he's putting up production like that. So it's an awesome story. It's a story, frankly, the NFL is going to fall in love with, especially with some of these high character teams. Like the Lions did this with Tesla last year, right? So it won't be the Lions, but like the New York Jets, I could see them with Aaron Glenn falling in love with this kid.
Please no.
But the story is fantastic, right? Are you a Jets guy?
No, but I mean, the Jets, it's like where everybody goes to die. Production goes to die. I mean,
That's very true.
Yeah, I just want him to go someplace where, wherever he can play. But you're right. When I was like, okay, Tyron Montgomery out of, small school, we have to look at the production there and take it with a grain of salt. But we do have to look at that and say, if he didn't dominate, then we're out. And he dominated.
Yes.
He dominated. Yes.
Yeah.
So he did the thing that you must do if you're coming from that type of a school, which is absolutely crush. And 3,000 yards and 36 touchdowns in 2 seasons is it. And I'm now just evaluating him straight up as an LSU wide receiver.
You should. That's just the way to do it. Yeah.
He's LSU.
Yeah. Which means they're like in contention for wide receiver U, right?
So that's baby. Yep. It's Ohio State and LSU. He's an LSU receiver. Now here's another one. I mean, can he get actual draft capital? I mean, this is like ridiculous, but I mean, I feel like, as such a project coming from such a small program with so little experience, you got to think the NFL is going to kind of think better of it. This is the definition of tuxedo risk.
Yeah, for sure. Here's the thing. If he wouldn't have dominated the Senior Bowl practices, I'd be like, yeah, probably long shot to go day 2, right? Probably be a day 3 guy or even, priority UDFA. But he dominated. I mean, he was legitimately awesome. I think every day he made the best play of the day for his team. Malachi Fields is the other guy on the other team that was dominating. So he was fantastic, man. And I'll point out too, in his college tape, he did the production, put up the production he did in 2 very different roles. His junior tape, he was more of like a primary go ball get, like kind of like a Carnell Tate role, post, goes, corners, real vertical route tree, and he dominated. Then the next year, they literally were just like, we have no chance to win unless we give you the ball a million times. He had 119 catches.
Right.
So he went from like 50 catches and 1,500 yards to 119 catches and 1,500 yards. Now people are going to look at that and go, well, why did he get so much less efficient? It just, his role completely changed. They were like, we just need to get you the ball as many times as humanly possible. I think they had some quarterback issues that year too. And so in 2 very distinct roles. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Very different roles he produced at the same level. So that's impressive to me. And like, you see the route running, you see the basketball background on tape.
Right.
You see it in the Senior Bowl practices too. Even the route running, like when he hits like a comeback route, it kind of looks like a step back 3, just the way he can jump out of his route. It's really nice. And then the ball skills just remind me of a basketball player boxing someone out. So
that's great. I hope he gets invited to the combine.
I think he said, obviously nothing's official, but when I asked him about that specifically, he's like, yeah, agent thinks, I'll be there. No big deal. He's training for it. Like he's going to be there. So,
because I mean, that's also a pathway for him to get drafted. I mean, if he's athletic, which it sounds like he's very athletic, it sounds like that's what was sort of seen by the guy watching him play flag football, why he was a basketball walk-on, like all these things. And like the plays he was making, like he was making above the rim type plays at the Senior Bowl too. Like that was what was so exciting was, and then the ball skills are like, wait a minute. Now, small sample, but in that small sample against good competition, he shines. So, You mentioned Malachi Fields, who was probably sort of maybe the chalk. He played pretty well, didn't he?
He was awesome. So they were the second practice every day. His team, the American team, he was all over the place. And my favorite, you read my Senior Bowl primer, so you know kind of what I'm looking for at the Senior Bowl. I want guys to add to their story, right? At Notre Dame, even at Virginia to a certain extent, he was like this vertical, linear route tree guy only. And
Right.
he's 6'4", 225. I don't blame teams for doing that, especially at the college level when corners are 5'9". So
Right.
I don't blame teams for doing that. And he was good in that role. But what we got to see at the Senior Bowl was a guy running routes, routing dudes up, hitting quick slants, quick outs, really nice dig route he runs. They're running dagger concepts with him as the dig player coming across the backside of the formation. And he looked awesome doing all that. He actually looked like a wide receiver one. Like he was the primary guy in that offense, really thrived. So I'm probably going to end with a second round grade on Fields. I think he's going to finish as a top 50 player for me on my big board. He was probably the best skill player at the Senior Bowl by a mile.
Interesting. And we've sort of talked about it that, there was a recent pod with JJ Zachariason and Matt Harmon, and the pod that JJ did just before it. And the idea that the wide receiver 2 is becoming a little less, important for fantasy because tight end usage is up and more targets being funneled to the alphas, all this sort of data that we're starting to see, a little bit of changing of the way that the trends in the NFL. Anyway, long story short, that only furthers the idea that we want to only be drafting top 50 drafted wide receivers in the NFL, because once you get past that, it's very, very difficult for them to sort of get on the field in a meaningful way. So the top 50 draft capital that could be a reality for Fields will certainly put him on the radar in the first or second round of our rookie drafts. And it sounds like you're okay with that, and it sounds like we're buying at that price.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a reason to the height, weight. It's a meme now, but height,
Right.
weight, speed. There's a reason that phrase exists, and he checks that box. And as much as we get away from that line of thinking, in the analytics community, I think the NFL still very much,
Yeah,
subscribes to height, weight, speed.
for
And
sure.
thankfully for Fields, he's also a good football player.
Yeah, he's a big. He wasn't very good on contested catches, only 47.3 for his career, but whatever.
Where's that data come from? Is that PFF?
Yes, PFF.
Yeah, so they're not contextualizing for like designed fade routes, for example. So a lot of these big receivers in PFF system, they come back with lower contested catch rate scores because if you throw a guy like 10 fade balls, that's a designed contested target. Those are
Yes.
literally 50-50 balls, right? So also a quarterback being late to a throw, they're not contextualizing for that or whatever. I do a true contested catch rate.
Sure.
I'll put out my prospect guide. I'll send that data to you for sure.
Please, we'll share it. One of the things that, of course, context is always key,
Yeah.
right? We've been using that data because it's been there for, I think,
Sure.
goes back to like 18 or something like that.
Yep.
It's to me, it's not perfect. You're right, because quite frankly, there's also, was that a contested catch or was that not a contested catch? I mean, that was close. And okay, was that a contested target? Was that catchable? There's a lot of that stuff. So, when I look at that, it's not like, the end all be all, but Carnell Tate, 12 out of 14 contested catches, you saying he's the best contested catch guy.
Yeah.
Data tracks.
Sure.
So hey, look, 47% isn't like the worst thing in the world, but it's not the best thing either. And I'd love to see some context on that for sure, my brother. Let's go to who do I want to talk about? Oh, who I really like by the data is this Kevin Coleman. What do you think of Kevin Coleman?
Really interesting prospect to study because he was a starter for 4 different teams in 4 years.
I saw this. Like, he's literally a fourth year senior. It's like Jackson State, Louisville, Mississippi State, then Missouri. I'm like, tell me a story here, bro. What's going on?
Yeah. One of my goals in the Senior Bowl was to interview him and find out why that was. Like, was he chasing NIL, which totally respected if he was, but I just got to find out, like, was this an attitude issue or is this like, I just want to get paid? People are offering me more money, so. Because those are kind of lateral moves, right? Like Louisville to Mississippi State, that's not like an upgrade, right?
Right.
And then Mississippi State to Missouri, kind of the same thing. So That said, regardless of any of that, he has some really likable traits on tape, especially. Fantastic run after catch guy, very fast.
Hmm.
You remember, like, gosh, these names are gonna probably not get people excited, but like Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin and Tank Dell, I'll throw Tank Dell in there too. They went to the Senior Bowl and they dominated the one-on-ones just because
Yes.
no one has the foot speed to keep up with those guys in like a one-on-one setting where you have no help and you're playing certain leverage. Well, that was Kevin Coleman in this week. Like, one-on-ones, just forget about it. He's just going to dominate. There's no one keeping up with his foot speed. Do I think that necessarily translates to NFL separation? No, probably not. But really fun player after the catch. I do think he's a good route runner. He's got some serious gas too. Yeah, I
Nice.
mean, I think he's probably another one of these day two guys. Late day two though, more of a kind of a Wandell Robinson type.
I'll tell you what; those players might have a little bit of efficacy. I mean, if he gets some draft capital, he becomes very interesting. He's been. What's crazy is that he's been at 4 different schools, yet he's been pretty freaking consistent.
Yeah,
I mean, his catch percentage is 73.8%. In other words, catch target, catch percentage, right? And it's like 78%, 72%, 73%, first year 69%. Like, he's been very good. His yards per reception is 12.6 for his career. It's 11, 12, 13, and 14. Those are, it's like everything you look at, it's been like pretty good. You look at his quarterback rating when targeted, it's 107 for his career, 121, 100, 112, 97. Like, there wasn't a lot of deviation from anything he was doing. If anything, his A dot went down, as he got older, which is not necessarily the best thing. I don't like seeing that. I like to see the A dot actually increase, where it means you're running
sure.
some more meaningful routes. But he did play in Missouri. From what I understand, I think they're usually not exactly a vertical passing attack.
He
So
played the Luther Burden role exactly.
yeah,
They literally replaced Burden with him, like same all screens and then the occasional slot fade.
thankfully he showed that he can do more than that, along the way, right? Or, I mean, not what do you think? Do you think he's a limited player? Because that's really now the question I'm going to be wondering is, like, you say he's got speed, he's got a pretty good body. They list him here. What was he at the Senior Bowl? Let me look. I have
It
that.
was 5'10", 195, something like that.
Was he
Is that
5'10"?
right?
I have it somewhere. I don't know where the hell I'm looking at everything I got, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Um,
I'm looking too. Sorry.
that's okay.
Uh oh, and they took his weight. Weird. Okay.
Hold on, I'll find
I
it.
thought I had it, but I don't. Yeah, he's the thing with Coleman is he is not like a super big guy.
5'11", 175.
Okay, so he's a little light, a little
Yep.
lighter in the pants than I thought.
Yep.
Another contributing factor too with draft capital here is he's a fantastic punt and kick returner,
Mm.
mostly punt returner. But yeah, I mean he's awesome at that, and teams are valuing that quite a bit. It gets you like an extra round, if
Yes.
team saw you as a 4th-round pick receiver, but you're an awesome returner, that might get you in the 3rd round. So
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, he's somewhat interesting. I mean, just the consistency across the 4 seasons, with
yeah,
4 different programs, I think that actually was more of a positive than it was a negative for me.
yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, I mean, certainly maybe more of a little bit of a slot Z profile, not necessarily an X, but maybe a little bit of speed out there. Maybe gets himself on the field with, gets himself active on game day with, who's the guy that the Ty Felton.
Yeah,
Unfortunately
consistent in the
didn't
3rd
play
round.
too much offense, but was out there in special teams. Maybe in that vein. I don't know. Let's go to the other kid that was I thought was pretty interesting was Josh Cameron.
Yeah,
Wasn't that was he a converted? No. What was Josh Cameron's situation?
yeah, he was a running back turned wide receiver,
There we go.
which
Thank you.
almost never happens, by the way. It usually goes the other way.
I wasn't sure if I was remembering that right, and then I was like, well, don't say something stupid, Scott.
Yeah, I'm looking at his stat. It doesn't look like he ever actually played as a running back for what it's worth, but
Right.
yeah, I mean he looks like AJ Brown. He's like 6'1",
Right.
6'2", just yoked. I mean, huge biceps, rocked up frame. Gosh, I saw him without his shirt off. And I was like, is that a defensive end? Like, what the heck, or outside linebacker kind of look to him. Actually, he was bigger than some of the linebackers at the Senior Bowl this year, which is kind of funny. And he plays like a running back. He plays the receiver position like a running back. I think some of his footwork is like super sloppy. Gosh, coming into the week, I was really critical of his route running, but for what it just works for whatever reason. I
Right.
don't understand it. So really, like, if we're talking aesthetics, it doesn't look pleasing to the eye the way he gets it done, but he gets it done. And then he's awesome at the catch point. Really good ball tracking. I think like at least once a practice in 11-on-11 team period, he had just a ridiculous catch down the sideline for like a 50-yard go ball or something. So you see the ball skills, the body control, and so I'm interested in him. I'm not probably gonna have a day 2 grade on him, but
Right.
like my opinion of him changed relatively dramatically in that like he was on my 7th round UDFA radar to now I'm like, yeah, early day 3 guy for sure.
That makes sense. Yeah, he's a rocked up. He had 19 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons, which is
Yeah.
pretty darn good. I mean, you know, 141 and 120 passer rating when targeted over the last 2 seasons as well. So, he kind of didn't do much in his first 3 seasons at Baylor, but, in his last 2, we don't love fifth year seniors and, late breakouts. It's not like this is an amazing prospect, but, kind of an interesting player for sure. And I was kind of curious, whether or not he would profile as something worthwhile or not. Let's see. We'll talk about what about Cyrus Allen? Somewhat of an interesting profile. How did he afford himself at the Senior Bowl, and what do you think of Cyrus Allen?
Yeah, I thought he looked good in the vertical elements of some of the drills they were doing. Really good foot speed. Not a guy I'm super high on though.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems really limited. Play strength is iffy. Not sold on his body control either, which to me, studying my own drafts wins and misses, I think the one trait among all good wide receivers that I scored him really high is body control. And so I've been, kind of thinking about that in the back of my mind as I watch these guys. And yeah, not really sold on that. I mean, is he an NFL player? Probably,
Yeah.
like a wide receiver 4 for a team, special teams guy to start, with some developmental upside.
It's pretty interesting. He was an outside player. He played for Louisiana Tech, and like
Mhm.
85% of his routes came from out wide. Transfers to Texas A&M. Still 70% of his routes came from out wide. In his final season at Cincinnati, over 90% of his routes came from the slot. So he
Yeah.
completely changed, from an outside player to a slot only guy, and was fine at that role. And I wonder, when you watched him or when you see him play, I mean, maybe you don't have a ton of notes on him, but more, was that a smart decision? Was that forced upon him? I don't know. Like that one's an interesting story to tell. Maybe what is the scuttlebutt on him? Is he going to be drafted? Like,
Yeah, I think he gets drafted. He won player of the week, didn't he? Actually, for that team, I think he did.
okay.
But anyways, yeah, I think he'll get drafted. The move to the slot was a good move. So
Okay.
I mentioned when I started talking about him the play strength issues.
Yes.
You move to the slot, you can hide him a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
so you saw that at the Senior Bowl practices too. He played both at the Senior Bowl practices, both outside and inside. But when he was inside, the wrinkle they were adding to the offense was like this real vertical vertical route tree, which is not something you see a lot. Reminded me a little bit of like T.Y. Hilton, the way he
Yeah.
was used with the Colts, where it's like not a lot of slot players running, go balls from, go routes from the slot, but Cyrus Allen was doing it and he was winning that way. I don't know, I don't know how developed he is though. And,
Right.
he's got the slight frame, but I think when you look at him, you're like, oh, that's a slot receiver. Like there's no
Right.
second thought about it. It's not like a Stephon Diggs where you could see that like he has the body and the frame
Inside
to kind of
outside.
hold up. Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So last one before I ask you just in general, Caleb Douglas, anything there?
Yeah, one of the guys I brought down from my team, Stephen O'Rourke, one of our lead analysts, kind of he's championed the separation metrics we have. Caleb Douglas was his guy going down, and no one watches more receiver play than Stephen O'Rourke, and so I went down there with like a skeptical eye, but like hoping to be impressed. And I'll say this about this wide receiver class in general: this is the first year in probably 5 where we've had a significant number of big 6'4" physical alpha dog type X receivers.
Right.
There's a lot of them in this class. Caleb Douglas is one, and the route running chops, you didn't get to see it a ton at Tech, but we saw it in Mobile where really good fluidity in his hips, the ability to sink, explode, get out of cuts fast. They were running him on some goal line whip routes that just looked for 6'4", it looked easy. Very impressive stuff. The ball skills too were there. I thought him and Malachi Fields along with Tyron Montgomery, probably the three best wide receivers at the Senior Bowl this year. So yeah, I'm impressed with Douglas for sure. He's at that weird range where, like, if he's the seventh best 6'4" guy, is he going to get in on day 2 or is he going to fall to day 3? Because not every team has that guy in their offense anymore, right? So
Totally.
yeah, so we'll see. But I was really impressed with what I saw.
There's a bunch of guys that we didn't mention. I think a couple of them you might like. I've been warming to one. I'm kind of curious of all the guys I didn't mention. There's a bunch of them. We're not going to get to all these guys because a lot of them are not worth it. Are any of these guys worth talking about?
Yeah, I'll throw one out there. Thanks for providing the list, by the way.
Yeah, I know it, right? That way you weren't
Quick
like,
question.
holy shit.
I'll throw Barry and Brown out there.
Yeah.
LSU guy. And the reason, and I know analytically, I don't think he's going to pop at all.
He won't.
Yeah, and the tape's also sometimes not great. So it's funny that I'm saying this, but we already know the NFL, overvalues speed and explosiveness, and this dude can freaking run, man. Like, there wasn't a single corner in Mobile who had a chance to track him on a go ball or a post route. He just cooked them all. In one-on-ones, I'm talking. Team period's different when you got a safety over the top. The math changes a little bit. But when we talk about guys that could fundamentally change the math on offense, he's one. And I think, like, if he goes to the combine and plays as a 4.25, I don't know how he doesn't get drafted on day 2. So, and I think that's a likely outcome.
So
I know
he's a small speed guy.
Yeah, he's like 5'11". He's actually built kind of well, isn't he?
Okay. I don't remember what he
to
was listed. Barry and Brown, 5'11", 175.
Okay, so not built very well. So, yeah,
Well,
small. Yeah. That's a great way to describe him. Then, yeah, he's tall. I mean, 5'11" is not short, but he's a little light in the pants. So, but he can fly though, man. Absolutely fly. Good punt returner too. So I think the special teams element plus the vertical could get him drafted way higher than he deserves to go. But yeah,
the guy I thought you might say here, and I'm not sure what you think of him, is Lewis Bond.
Okay.
Anything there? I mean, he measured in 5'11", 200, which is exactly what you want out of a prototypical, do it all wide receiver. I don't know the Boston College system, whether or not that was, not a great system for passing. I don't really know. I don't follow college football that well, but he was sort of good, not great analytically. If you sort of look at him, like, he hovered just below 2 yards per route run, and his final season was 2.09. That's fine. His ADOT right around 8, which is a little close to the line of scrimmage. Again, could be an issue with the offense, but 107 career quarterback rating when targeted. Almost 70% on contested catch balls over his career. A little bit of a late breakout. He's a 5th-year senior. I mean, it's not like he's great, but I mean, it was at least a little bit there where I was like, wait a minute, if you can tell me a story, maybe I could find a way to like Lewis Bond, but I don't know anything about him. I was just looking at some profiles that might have stuck out.
So full disclosure, he had a huge hive down in Mobile. There was some buzz about him.
Okay.
I personally didn't see it. I thought he struggled in multiple days of practice. He is a 3-year producer though in college. I know was he a 5th-year guy?
He is a 5th year. Yep.
Okay, so did nothing for 2 years, right? And
correct.
Then,
that's also a huge red flag.
Yeah, did nothing for 2 years. Then 3 years of I would say actually pretty solid production for
pretty
a program
solid.
Not very good. But he's built like he's how do I describe him? He's one of these high effort, high motor, kind of bulky slot guys where it's like you're going to get a ton of effort after the catch. He's going to thrash and look to move the chains at all costs. I don't know that he's forcing necessarily missed tackles, but he's very physical in nature. And I think that shows up in his route running where it's like you don't want to press him, even though he's a kind of a slot build. He's too strong for that. Like your nickel corner is going to get bullied by him. So I think some of the short route running is good. And he's a high motor, high effort player. So
hey Brett, to your point, he actually does have missed tackles for. So
okay.
Yeah. No, but I mean, when you said it, so I mean, he had 50 receptions, 52, 67, and 88 receptions. So 52, 67, 88 in those seasons, 20, 21, and 16 missed tackles forced.
There you go.
By the charting, yeah, he is that guy. So this is exactly what he is. And to your point again, he played on his routes 55% out of the slot, 43% out wide. So he was an inside outside type of guy, mostly in the slot, especially in his final 2 seasons, as that was 55 and 62% slot rate on his routes. So yeah, interesting little player that can play a little inside, little outside, can break some tackles. Um, Interesting. We'll keep a small little tiny candle lit for Lewis Bond. Let's move to the running backs. Unless there's anybody else you wanted to mention at the wide receiver position, even like down to like guys like Denzel Boston. Is there anybody? Yeah, let me ask that question before we move on to running backs. Is there anybody that you really want to talk about? Whether it be Chris Brazzell,
Hmm.
Bell, Denzel Boston, KC Concepcion. I would actually ask. I'm going to ask one after you go. So go ahead. Anybody else you want to mention in the wide receiver rooms?
Yeah, I can't talk about the wide receiver class this year without mentioning my guy Casey Concepcion. Um, the more I watched this guy, the more I just fell in love to the point where like I started having to like physically fight myself to remove bias from his from the way I score. And even with that, with me like really fighting it, he's going to come out as a top 12 player for me in this draft class. I think he's awesome. He's my wide receiver too. There isn't a single wide receiver skill that he doesn't possess right now. He's a very developed player, excellent route runner, ball skills, ball tracking, body control in droves, the yards after catch, the speed, explosiveness, everything you could ever want in a receiver. He's got. He's just 5'11", and I don't even care. I don't care
I
about
don't
that.
care about 5'11".
Yeah,
5'11 sounds
some
fine.
people do. Some people do. So yeah, I don't. He's 5'11". He's like Jamar Chase size. Oh
Yep.
well, Jamar Chase is awesome. Let's go get it. So yeah, I love Casey Concepcion. I think he is. Yeah, I think he's freaking awesome. So
Great. Love it. The guy I was going to ask about that, is KC Concepcion. Look, the prototype for production in the NFL: Amon Ra, Jamar Chase,
yeah,
CD Lamb, Justin Jefferson. You know, all
they're
these
all that
guys.
size. Yep.
JSN. They're all 5'11" to 6'1", really 6 foot, 200 pounds. The closer you are to 200, the better, because you're able to sort of play through contact, right? If you're 175 pounds, they can kind of tie you up a little bit. But at 200 pounds and 6 foot, you're perfect, with a little long extremities if you got them, like the little CD Lamb Velociraptor, even better. But okay. The other guy that I was going to throw into that conversation is Omar Cooper. How far or close to KC Concepcion is Omar Cooper?
Cooper's another one of my guys. I like both Indiana receivers quite a bit actually.
Yes.
Surratt, he missed my first round cut by just a bit, and then Cooper's literally right behind him. So I have like Mekhi Lemon, Elijah Surratt, and Omar Cooper really tight, like those three. So I love Cooper. You want like a yards after catch demon? He's your guy. I mean, he's an absolute freak. And then he has like 3 or 4 just absolutely alien catches on tape that you're
Yeah.
like, I don't understand how this guy caught this ball. So he's got the body control. So the two things I really look for, body control and ability. Like you need that one expertise skill that sets you apart, whether that's separating or yards after catch. So he's got two like premium traits for me, like in I would say elite scores in both those areas. So
Yeah, and look, in the 2 seasons before Mendoza got there this past year, he played mostly out wide. He ran about 85% of his routes from out wide. This past year, 83% of his routes from the slot. So that's, or 83% of his pass snaps, I guess. That's basically his routes from the slot. So that's really good. You're right, 7.5 yards per yak per reception, which is kind of ridiculous. 27 missed tackles forced this past year out of the slot. His quarterback rating when targeted 143.2, 50% on contested catch balls, 2.55 yards per route run, 2.52 last year, even 2.14 in his first year with Indiana, which was not a voluminous season, but even on a per route basis, he was great.
yep.
He's 15 yards a catch for his career. He had 13 touchdowns this past year. Omar Cooper, for me, is closer to my wide receiver 4 than he is anywhere else. I mean, I'm with you. I think KC Concepcion and Omar Cooper will be right there with Jordan Tyson for me, unless something changes. I think these guys are the modern NFL. Again, what is Omar Cooper listed at? 6'204", and what I'm seeing here, we'll see what he measures out, but that is the prototype. Give me Omar Cooper. I am so happy to hear a film guy tell me that the data is not faulty. I love it, dude. I'm so excited for Omar Cooper.
Yeah, he's awesome. Look, you see the 205 in his lower half too, man. He's thick. He's thick down there. So
love that. We call them the ass legs, remember?
yeah, yes.
Yeah, ass mass. Kamani Vidal made it famous. Javonte Williams was ass mass, ass legs, and then Kamani Vidal ass mass. So yes, Kamani Vidal. By the way, nailed Kamani Vidal too. So we got just while I'm here, just might as well victory lap a quick one. Let's do this. Let's take one more quick break, and then we'll finish with some running backs right after this. We're back with Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points. Just an awesome show. Talk about a guy who could talk about college football, pro football, and football in and of itself for as long as you would ask him to do so. He'd literally just have to pass out before he could stop. This is such a great conversation. Thanks so much for giving me so much of your time and giving this audience so much information. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you.
So much fucking fun. All right. Running backs should be a short conversation. Running backs, let's start with let's just talk about Jeremiah Love. I think the real question is he's going in the first round. He's likely to probably go in the top 10 of the NFL draft, given that there's not that many weapons up top and there's not many running backs. So he will be the thirst will be real. If he falls, he's going to be a top 20 pick, right? So we're talking about an early first round pick in the NFL draft. I think the question we're asking ourselves is, how good is he, right? How good is he?
Yeah. So if we're comparing, I've already mentioned I go back and I look at historical scores I have for guys. So my score for him right now puts him above where, like, say, Ashton Genty was last year, but not quite where Bijan was a couple years ago. So he's somewhere in that spectrum. I think there's some things he does even better than Bijan in the pass game specifically. I think he's got some dynamicism there that rivals like a Jahmyr Gibbs type.
Yeah.
But I think Bijan was a better overall runner of the football than Jeremiah Love. But they're both awesome, elite. I've been doing this since, gosh, when was my first season? I think I'm up to like 12 draft classes now, whatever. And I think he's like my RB3 all time.
Yeah,
it's like Bijan 1, CMC 2. So that put him ahead of Saquon Barkley actually historically as well. So Saquon was my RB4, Jeremiah Love my RB3. So
yeah, really good. I don't disagree here. I mean, everything you look at from an analytics standpoint is like, oh, he's really good. Like basically 7 yards per carry for 2 straight seasons with 15 plus touchdowns, actually 17 and 18 rushing touchdowns. The pass catching is huge because it's, he's got a 1.60 yards per route run for his career, 1.84 this past season. Now, I know it's not a ton of yards, only 280 yards, but that just shows you when he's involved, he's getting the ball and making plays. So just an incredible player all the way around. And when you factor in you watch him, it breaks runs, can run away from defenders. I mean, yeah, the film is there, but also just by the numbers, shows up as an elite talent. Can't wait to see where he lands, because landing spot will certainly light the kerosene on fire if it's a great offense that he finds his way onto. In terms of all right, now the bad news. The rest of the class leaves a lot to be desired. Each running back that I think you could say, okay, this is my RB2, which I think there's a handful of them that could reasonably become the RB2. Each one of them has a little bit of a wart that you could pick at. There was a couple of guys that were not at the combine, not at the Senior Bowl. Jadarian Price and who's the other guy? Jonah
Coleman.
Jonah Coleman were both not there. Of those two guys, what are your thoughts about those two running backs specifically?
Jadarian is a fun one because I don't know what to really think of him. This just shows you how good Jeremiah Love is, by the way. That
Right.
like there's an actual hive of Jadarian. Like I talked to a couple scouts actually down there who love Jadarian Price. The dude barely played because
Right.
Jeremiah Love. So what do you have, like 6 career catches? I'm being a little sarcastic there, but
It's
like
probably not that far off. He had
legitimate.
6 this year. He has 15 total for his career. Yeah.
How do you, so you're telling me this speed back is going to go in the second round of the draft, and we've never seen him play on pass downs?
Right. Right.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so that just shows you how in question the running back class is too, by the way. Like
Yes.
I need to know for a fact he can play on passing downs before I'm taking this guy that high. So I'm a little bit like I'm skittish on Jadarian Price. He didn't
Yeah.
score too well for me, like early round 3, I think. But given the scarcity of the position, he might find himself in round 2 for sure, obviously. So yeah, Jadarian Price is, you know, he's fast, really, really fast. We know that, right? That's the one thing he routinely puts on tape, that he's an explosive dude. I think he's got pretty loose hips. You see him make some really demonstrative cuts, and he's fluid with setting up, multiple moves in a row. But ultimately, he's just like a really fast speed back type guy, probably a little bit restricted in what kind of scheme he can land in. Like it's going to
Right.
be like an outside zone heavy scheme, probably looking to maximize him. So I'm not sure what kind of draft capital he gets. I wish I had more for you on him. He's
I
one
know.
of the most puzzling guys to figure out in this draft class.
Yeah, exactly. He's like playing behind a stud. We've seen this a few
Yeah.
times where whether it was Chubb and Sony Michelle or what. I mean, you see it throughout. With some of the players that play with just stud running backs. And you never know. You never know exactly what you have behind them. What about Jonah Coleman, who feels like maybe jack of all trades, master of none, like. But pretty damn good football player. Gets very, very high grades in PFF, offense and rushing grade. Tell me a little bit about Jonah Coleman, who seems to be the consensus RB2. Is that right?
He seems like he is the consensus RB2. He might end up there for me as well. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm a little behind on final scores for running
Me
backs,
too.
but what I like about Jonah is for his size, he is an awesome pass down player.
Hmm.
Really good in pass protection, and then fantastic hands, pretty good route runner. You see him make a ton of really accomplished profile as a receiver, actually, for a 230-pound back. It's just kind of rare. What I don't like about Jonah Coleman is he doesn't play 200 like he's 230 pounds.
Hmm.
He's not sorry, marble mouth here. He's not the most physical runner of the football. He's not like, when I see 230, I think David Montgomery, stick your face in a fan, grind out tough yards
Yeah.
after contact. That's and I think Jonah's metrics might show he had good yards after contact, but I don't think it was elite, especially for his size. And when you watch on tape, there's a lot of like one hit and go down type moments where you're just kind of left like, why? Why did that corner? Why was he able to tackle you? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
And some of it might be a little bit of tightness in the hips. I do think he has tremendous vision though, and so I think he's got like a real safe floor with his pass game chops and his vision, kind of like a poor man's Ezekiel Elliott, in that Zeke was just good. Whatever the line blocks for you, he's going to go get those yards. I
Yeah.
do have that confidence with Jonah Coleman.
Yeah. I
So I think
mean,
teams will like him because of that. But
yeah. I mean, 4.8 yards per attempt this past year as a senior was, I mean, that's not that good, and I know that
oh,
we
not
don't
in
only
college.
we don't only look at yards per attempt. I know that can be
Yeah.
especially at the college level, that can be a number that can be misleading, especially on the high end. If you run in an offense that just there's wide gaping holes, but 4.8, I don't care, man. That's just not that good. It's not very good. So I don't know what's going on there. He did have his last year in Arizona was 6.8, but he's 5.5 for his career, which is fine. It is fine. And for a guy that, like you say, is, a bigger type of back, you'd like to see a little bit better yards per attempt, but we'll see. One of the players we're going to talk about a little later has some variance in yards per attempt from year to year as well. I'm curious to see what you're going to say about him. But before we go to him, Emmett Johnson,
Yep. From Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Yeah, Emmett's you know, I think he's a solid running back, good vision. He's got some explosive runs on tape. I think he runs relatively physical, gets a little high at times. Yeah, nothing special though, right? It's just kind of like
Yeah.
probably profiles as an early down grinder to start with some developmental upside as a pass catcher, but for the most part. I think you're talking like round 3 best with him.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the Senior Bowl. You saw some of these guys up close and personal. I've always argued that I think at the Senior Bowl, the running backs they have a harder time because they're not going to be able to show tackle breaking and the full gambit of what they can do in terms of running the football. There's a lot of just you know not full contact tackling all the time and a lot of the drills for obvious reasons. But what does show a lot of times is the pass game stuff where they can show what they can do catching the football, running routes and things of that nature. But ultimately, what did you see at the Senior Bowl out of the running backs? I think Mike Washington was the sort of the talk of the town. What did you see there?
Yeah, Washington was awesome. I think he was by far the best running back there. I think I had him like my RB4 going into the week among the guys that I had, gotten early watches on. RB4 for Senior Bowl player, sorry.
Right.
And I came out, feeling pretty good about him to the point where I like went and finished his tape. I was like, I gotta do all of his tape now because that was impressive. And really kind of a weird path, right? Did he start at Buffalo, then New Mexico State or something, and then 1 year at Arkansas on the SEC? But he looks the part. The one thing I'll say about Washington, I already invoked the name David Montgomery, but very similar player where it's like this guy runs like he's angry at the ground. Like every step, it's like he's trying to crack the earth. It's really it's awesome. Like he's very physical running back, but despite that, he has an incredible feel in the pass game. And I know his pass down production wasn't great in college, but when you see the way he sets up his routes, the way he sits down in zones, his feel for all of that stuff for leaking, like when he's got a check or a chip, and the timing, the pace he gets out into his route, it looks really comfortable, really natural. At the Senior Bowl, he tore it up in the one-on-one drills as well as a receiver. Now, mind you, this is a 225, 230-pound back out there routing guys up. Usually every year, the guy who's making the most noise against the linebackers and pass drills, they'll bring over a safety to have him cover. And Washington, to end it was the day 2 practice. They had a safety come over from the DB group. They went one-on-one. They had a wheel route called. Mike Washington cooked him for a 50-yard touchdown. So that's like really encouraging stuff to where, like, if we're talking about guys with potential upside compared to draft capital, like I think he's a candidate to do that. The troubling thing is like most of his production comes at a small school, right?
Yes.
And he's a fifth year player, so he's going to be a little older, kind of Ray Davis-y,
Yeah. I mean, you look at it like, his first year in Buffalo had just over 100 yards, but basically was 4.2, 4.0, 4.5 for yards per attempt for up until his senior year through New Mexico State. And then in Arkansas this last year, 6.4 yards per attempt, over 1,000 yards rushing. Also, finally catches 28 balls for 226 yards. Like, he blows up as a fifth-year senior at a higher level of competition, goes to the Senior Bowl. Like, where was all this for 4 years at a lower level of comp? It's really hard to understand. You would think that if he was able to do that, at Arkansas, that he would have been able to do some semblance of that along the way somewhere, and just really didn't do it. So very vexing profile when you look at it, and when you hear people who see him say, "Yeah, this dude's the real deal, legit." It's like, where the hell was the real deal, legit, for 4 years before that? That's really the question.
Does it give you any confidence that his best production was at the highest level?
Yes, of course it does, right? But it's like, it's just, it's also just such a question. Like, where was this? It's just very, very, I don't know. The profile is a scary one. We like to look at, obviously if you're just talking about metrics, I want to see someone who did something in their first 2 years. Freshman, sophomore year, they did something, and he was not doing much at a lower level of competition. It's like, that's weird, so maybe he's just one of these late bloomers. I don't really know. But I have a question about Jaden Ott. This is one of the strangest profiles I've ever seen. Like, right?
You're not lying. You're not lying, man.
Jaden Ott went for 900 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground as a freshman at Cal. His second year goes for 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, was probably at that point, like, looking at, like, being one of the top running backs in the nation. And then he's done nothing for 2 years. I looked and I saw like he had 21 attempts for 68 yards this past year at Oklahoma after transferring there. 21 carries for 68 yards. I was like, wait, did he get hurt? No, he basically played. Like, tell me what in the hell happened and what's wrong with Jaden Ott, who was really good. Like just to give you some context, this is his PFF run grades: 90.1, 89.5, 70.8, 62.1. Like this is crazy. This wasn't like some outlier. He was a really good football player for 2 years, and then it's absolutely nothing. Tell the story.
I wish I could. You're underselling his production a little bit in 2025. He also had 2 catches, so don't sell him short there with the
monster in the pass game.
23 total touches, man.
I was like, how did this guy get to the Senior Bowl? Like why is he there if he's who he is in the last 2 years? And then I hear that he wasn't that good there. Like what? It's just I don't know. This is crazy. The inverse of Mike Washington.
There were people asking that very question.
Why is he here?
NFL people like, why is this guy here? Like, I actually forgot Jaden Ott played football still. Mm-hmm. He was totally out. When I saw him on the Senior Bowl roster, I was like, what?
He still plays? 3
years ago? Yeah, I had no idea he still played football. So that was weird. I haven't got around to watching his 23 tape from a scoring perspective yet. So I wish I could tell the story. Unfortunately, that's on my to-do list. Obviously, when you're trying to do 300 prospects, you can't do them all at once, unfortunately. So
we got to figure out what's going on. There's got to be something, because you aren't a 1,300 yard back, and that highly rated, and like I mean, look, maybe he's not the best player, but something's got to be going on. Like, he caught 46 balls as a freshman, 46 receptions. Like, this guy was like, I mean, again, I don't follow college football that closely, but there's got to be something. I guess he transferred to Oklahoma and then like got completely buried. Didn't play. Like,
even his last year at Cal, he was not playing a lot. 3.3 yards a carry too.
Something's up.
When I looked at his profile initially, I was like, oh, he clearly had some type of catastrophic injury at the end of 23 that bled into the first half of 24, and just not the same guy. But then you look at like his games played, and you're like, wait a second, he played every game in 23 and started the season in 24. So I have no idea what's going on there. Very strange profile.
Very strange profile. Well, I will dig deeper, but likely is that his career is just over if everybody's given up on him. It's just crazy. You see that stuff. Like, if I were to just show you the freshman and sophomore profile and said this guy was at the Senior Bowl, you'd be like, oh, you know what I mean? You're like, tell me all. Like, what did he do in his final 2 years? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. You'd never believe it.
He was another one that won Player of the Week for his position group.
Did he really?
I didn't think he looked good in any practice, so I'm not. The players vote on that, though. It's not like, do you really think Jennings Dunker's watching the running back prospects, and he's voting on? No, I don't think so. So,
I mean, if it was based on hairstyle, obviously we know who's winning there. Yeah. So let's go to the red meat that's available to us, which is the Kaytron Allen, Nick Singleton. I think there's something there. What are your thoughts about these two backs? And how do they look down at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the minority where I like both of them in different ways, and I feel like for whatever reason the dynasty communities like they're forcing themselves to flag plant on one or the other. Either you're a Singleton guy or an Allen guy. I kind of like both of them for different reasons. So
same.
Singleton's profile on tape in college was that of a very good receiver prospect, like running back receiver prospect.
Right.
Change of pace. Like he's got a ton of juice. Fantastic in the pass. Like from a pass pro standpoint, technique is pristine. He's physical. He's willing. Wants to come up and hit linebackers blitzing. Checks all those boxes. Then as a route runner, dynamic, really good with the ball in his hands, in space, all that, just great. So I like him for that reason. At the Senior Bowl, though, I was like, well, let me get a closer look. I go out on the field to watch some of their individual drills. These aren't like one-on-ones. These are like bag drills, and just kind of want to get a feel for how he's moving.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was dealing with something, but he looked super stiff to me, like really only linear speed at all. No agility, no ability to, kind of break down, get his hips involved, real stiff overall feel. I was shocked by that. Kaytron Allen, on the other hand, moved very fluidly. Problem is, Kaytron Allen was awful in the pass drills. like the profile is kind of manifested as true. I felt like where it's like Katron Allen's early down grinder, Nicholas Singleton at the NFL level is probably more of a change of pace slash third down back, and I think
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine. It sucks for fantasy. I don't know that you're getting no. Obviously, draft capital changes everything. So does opportunity, right? One of these
Yeah.
guys lands on a team, all of a sudden they get a chance. They have a
Yes.
couple good games. Well, everything's changed, right? I'm not going to say they can't be relevant for dynasty, but as it stands right now, I don't look at these two guys as dynasty assets.
You're nailing it. I always said, like, we're doing the running back model, and Jay's doing a great running back. It's gonna come out great. It's gonna be an awesome model. We're excited about it. But I said, let's put opportunity in there,
Yeah.
and we all chuckled because of course you can't. There's no.
Yeah.
How do you put what the opportunity they're going to get? Like Woody Marks versus Dylan Sampson or whomever. Like you know,
Right.
who's better? Well, whoever got on the field, like Caleb
Yes.
Johnson or this guy. Like Caleb didn't get on the field. Maybe he's good, maybe he's not. I mean, he's probably not. But if all of a sudden he's starting, he would have been good enough. Like he would have gotten opportunities. So the opportunity at the running back position is a huge part of it all, and we never know who's going to get what. So you always have to understand that. But I
Yep.
agree. The Frankenstein monster of these two backs would be probably an absolute stud, but unfortunately you can't do that. I had this. This was crazy. Hold on, I've got it right here. Nick Singleton. He's the tale of multiple seasons too, because when you look at Nick Singleton in his freshman and junior years, he's just an absolute stud. When you look at him in his sophomore and senior years, not so much. Let me see if I've got it here. Hold
Really
on.
strange, right?
Very strange, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he was bad, but he was not all that good, right? So let's see here. I've got it right here. So there we go. So yeah, he was 6.8 yards per rush and 6.4 yards per rush in his freshman and junior, and then 4.4 in each of his sophomore and senior season.
Wild.
So like that's a huge difference. And I was trying to figure out, like, analytically, I'm not going to go back and watch every run. What was the difference? And it really came down to, especially in his senior year, he didn't break any big runs. Like his 15-yard run rate, freshman through junior, was 9%. 9% of his runs went for 15 or more. As a senior, 2.4%. Like, just he had 3 15-yard runs in his senior season. That's just awful.
Yeah.
And 18 in his freshman, 18 in junior, only 9 as a sophomore. So again, those big plays are what make him successful. To your point here, that I don't think he's much of a manipulative runner. He's more like, hey, if I can break it, I'm fast and I'm big enough to kind of maybe brush you off and make a big play. 10-yard run rate was the same. 10-yard rush rate, it went from 14.4% in his first 3 seasons to 9.7 in his final season. Even missed tackles forced, which aren't that good, 17.4% first 3 years, 15.3.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he does have good yards per route run for his whole career as a receiver, as you point out. Yeah. Nick Singleton not breaking tackles and really relying on the home run ball, I don't like that for his NFL prospects. And as much as a fan of his as I was, I'm starting to wonder if he's going to be worth the squeeze at the price we're going to have to pay for Nick Singleton in rookie drafts.
Well, especially if you're drafting before the NFL draft, right? So I think after the NFL draft, you could see that settle down a little bit, because I don't think he'll get great draft capital.
I agree.
Especially, actually, this free agent running back class is really good too.
Yep.
It kind of makes up for the lack of draft. So typically, if both are bad, then you see some guys get drafted higher than they should. But I don't think it's going to happen this year, because there's like 9 good free agent running backs, so teams can load up there if they want to. And I think post draft rookie drafts, you'll be able to get him a lot cheaper.
I think that's right. Man, I was hoping we'd find a way to disagree there, but I think it's no, but really it's kind of a solved equation. I'm looking for some red meat, some red blood in the waters of the conversation of Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. I don't think there is any. I think there's going to be some people who really love Nick Singleton based off of the early profile, which was amazing, by the way. But I think we found the holes in his profile, and a lot of it is actually, hey, Katron, how good is Katron Allen, right? Like, I don't think we think he's amazing, but they felt like they needed to play him a lot because of what Nick Singleton lacks as a player.
Katron Allen's Penn State's all-time leading rusher.
There you go. That's
Isn't that
crazy.
crazy? I mean, think about all the good backs that go through there. He's their all-time leading rusher, and he wasn't even the starter.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I would say Katron's probably a slightly ascending asset, where Singleton's a slightly depreciating asset. So
I think Katron is just solid too. Like, just
he's
solid player. Like, you're right. The pass game stuff, like, not very good. He's not really. Yeah, that's the thing with him, is like, you're not going to be thinking. Look, if he lands on a team where he can play that David Montgomery role,
took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah,
I was actually going to even say, like, the line, like we talked about opportunity. Well, the Lions are rumored to possibly be moving on from David Montgomery.
Yeah.
Well, let's say they drafted Katron Allen.
Perfect.
And placed. Yeah, then all of a sudden he has a ton of dynasty value. Of course.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He needs to be in that type of a role. And I think he's going to be great at it because he's a really solid player. He's a totally different when you look at the numbers, and we'll be breaking this down on future pods, but he's got a missed tackles force. He actually makes guys miss, but doesn't have the big plays because he's making guys miss for 2 or 3 yards, not for it. Look, if Nick Singleton makes you miss, he's gone. But he's probably not going to make you miss. Katron's going to make you miss, but he's going to have a harder time breaking it. And that's just the way it goes. But I think he's probably the better NFL back, and that pains me because I can remember the days I was just waiting for Nick Singleton to come out so I could draft him in Dynasty, but I don't think he's the guy we hoped he'd be.
Same.
All right, we'll finish with some tight ends because I can't. The lunch pails are just too shiny. There's stickers all over these lunch pails. I'm going to start by asking you, before we get to the Senior Bowl, we'll just take a couple quick ones. This is going to be rapid fire. Kenyon Sadiq, don't love his profile. He's going to be a first round pick, it sounds like, and he's fast and an amazing athlete. The problem I have is that doesn't show up anywhere in the statistics, right? There's nowhere where his athleticism and his dominance show up. And that makes me very, very nervous about him as a prospect. What are your thoughts about Kenyon Sadiq?
So from an NFL standpoint, I really like Kenyon Sadiq. You mentioned the athleticism. More importantly, I like really excellent body control and pretty developed route running for a college tight end. That Oregon offense is kind of stupid, where it's like, hey, like they almost pigeonhole him into being Johnny Smith, where it's like you're catching a screen or we're hitting you down the seam. They don't allow him to do a whole lot. What really sold me on Sadiq, though, is that I think he's an every down player from day one, where he is awesome in the run game. And that's despite him being slightly undersized, where the way Oregon used him as a move blocker, he was a move tight end a lot. So they'd motion him in, have him climb to the second level, pick up linebackers, safeties. He's moving guys off the point of attack. Thought he was really good on combo blocks too, like as a play side blocker. So the blocking element sold me on him being an every down player. So you combine the athleticism, which we know matters so much for tight ends.
Yeah. Then
the fact that he's going to be a day one, from day one, he'll be an every down player, which isn't true for a lot of tight ends that get drafted high. I think it bodes really well for his prospects. Is he as good of a prospect as like Ty Warren or Colson Loveland? No, I don't think so. But I think he's a very good tight end prospect.
Yeah, I mean, he's tantalizing for sure, and we've seen it. Like, he looks the part when you see it. Like, damn, this guy looks like an amazing athlete, and he is an amazing athlete. I think he's going to run fast. What do you think he's going to run?
I struggle with tight ends a little bit. I'd say maybe a hair under 4.5.
That'd be fast. Yeah, I was going to say in the 4.5s, but yeah, he could run. If he runs in the 4.4s, like, that'd be crazy. But certainly less than a 4.6, right?
Yeah, less than a 4.6. He's got that like a more sprinter body than a typical tight end because he's 6'3". He's like a little more compact. I think he can get out of his stance, and like some of those tight ends that run really fast are about that size. So
yeah, I agree. I think he's going to run fast. I think that the the tight end that I need to make sure that he's a every down tight end at the NFL level. But the profile of Eli Stowers is pretty exciting for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can play in line or whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm definitely getting some questions about that. What are your thoughts about Eli Stowers in that regard?
Yeah, I love Eli Stowers, man. He's one of my guys in this draft class for sure. So I like to hear that you like him. I think he's probably the best pure pass catching tight end in this draft, better
Yep.
than Kenny Sadiq even from a route running standpoint. Gosh, you look at him and Diego Pavia literally carried Vanderbilt. I mean, literally, like that team's I said almost said franchise. That program sucks.
Hey,
Vanderbilt literally
they're
sucks.
franchises now, man. They're
Yeah,
paying.
true. And those two single handedly almost had them in the college football playoffs. So I think Stowers is awesome. You mentioned the concerns about can he play inline or not. That's a valid concern. I think right now he definitely is best served as a move tight end. Some teams are okay with having their starter be more of a move tight end.
Yeah.
I think of like the Baltimore Ravens. Like Mark Andrews has never been a guy that's played in line, yet he
Right.
plays a ton of snaps every year.
Kincaid.
Yeah, Kincaid. Well, I think people wish he would play a little bit more.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's kind of my point. Is like, is
Yeah,
he?
you don't want him to land on a team like that for sure.
No, but is he better or worse than Kincaid as a prospect, or
Oh, I think he's better than Kincaid as a prospect because the athleticism, like people, we overvalue athleticism for pretty much every other position, but tight end, we know historically it matters
it
a ton.
matters?
In fact, like if you look at data from either whether that's Math Bomb or Scott Barrett, like
Yep.
it's pretty clear that athleticism matters for the tight end position more than any other position in the NFL.
Yeah,
So,
for production.
and Stowers has that. Like he's a fantastic athlete. He's a little slight, so I think ideally he lands on a team that has a belief that he can be an every down player at some point in his career. He probably won't be that early on because he is
Right.
a little thin in the pants and wasn't asked to do a whole lot of exotic things as a run blocker. It was pretty simple. He lines up in the slot. He goes after the nickel corner, and that's pretty much it. So,
Yeah.
where
But you
Sadiq
look
has a
at
much more.
Colson, Loveland, Laporta. These guys weren't like monstrous run blockers. I mean, I think Loveland probably the best out of that. Is that right? I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember
well,
here, but
Loveland coming from that pro style offense in Michigan, he was asked to do a lot of things.
yes,
And he didn't necessarily perform that at a super high level, but the knowledge for it was there.
yes,
Like he was running counter and power and inside zone, outside zone. Like Stowers, they ran like inside zone and some counter here and there, but he was never like a play side blocker as like the lead guy. You know what I mean? So,
yes.
yeah. But ultimately, like the advent of 12 and 13 personnel is here, and I think it's here to stay
It
for
is.
at least the next 3-4 years. And so there isn't a better time for the NFL to draft a guy like Eli Stowers high.
Bingo. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's very, very well said. That's exactly right. And that's, I think, where my brain is going. Like, I've always just said, like, I just need like the reason I gave a shit about run blocking was so that the tight end I'm drafting in my fantasy league, in my dynasty league, is going to be on the field.
Right.
Well, with the advent of 12 and 13, he's going to be on the field because he's now sort of the de facto slot, H-back, whatever you want to call him, move tight end. But, a lot of teams weren't playing with move tight ends. So if they're not playing with a move tight end, then your move tight end isn't on the field. So, but
Exactly.
now if they're playing with him on the field, then he is there. So that's exactly right. So yeah, it's like the Harold Fannin thing. I was like, look, if Harold Fannin is any good, he's going to be great. If
Yep.
he's not good, then it doesn't matter anyway, right? The binary choice of if he's good or not, that's always a coin flip. But we knew that if Harold Fannin was any good, he was going to be dope as a
Yep.
receiving as a receiving tight end, excuse me.
Totally.
And he landed in a spot where they were willing to play two, where they were willing to put him in the backfield, where they were willing to use him as the mismatch that he is. And I think Eli Stowers is going to be similar in that fact that he has to be moved around. He has to be accounted for by the offensive coordinator, not just thrown in as our quote unquote starting tight end. Get in there, boy. Yeah, you have to design plays for him, but I think that the NFL is showing a propensity to do so almost across the league. So I agree with you 1,000%. Was there anybody in Mobile that is worth us talking about at the tight end position that has the body movement? Really talking about fantasy, not necessarily, big guy can block. It's fine if you got one that you want to mention, but I'm talking about a guy who can really go out there and shred.
Yeah, there were a couple of guys I was really intrigued by in Mobile. I'll start with Sam Roush. He's probably my biggest riser of the week outside of Tyrone Montgomery because I didn't know who he was.
Right.
But other than that, Sam Roush is probably my biggest riser of the week. Where this guy's 6'6". He's actually built exactly like Colson Loveland.
Right.
And Stanford's a goofy offense. He was used primarily as a run blocker. I think he had okay production though, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Yeah, 545 yards this past season. That's not terrible for a college tight end at all, right? And he goes to the Senior Bowl and he's just routing everybody up at 6'6". Like for a 6'6" guy to anatomically have the ability to sink and explode out of breaks and run a full route tree, it's not super common, really. And he was doing it. I mean, like at a really high level. I talked to an Eagle scout and a Colt scout who both said he's probably a lock to go day 2, and they would expect he goes somewhere at the end of round 2 even. So
wow,
that's a big riser for me. Another one I'll throw out there. Oh, did you want to say anything about him? Or
no, go for it.
Tanner Koziol, the Houston tight end, another huge guy. Reminds me of Colby Parkinson a little bit, except that Parkinson's a dog in the run game. I don't think Koziol is, but the ball skills and the ability to go up and get it reminds me of Parkinson, where it's like you're in the red area, man. This guy could score 8 to 10 touchdowns a season. Like he is dominant at the catch point. You see the way he tracks the ball mentally is really, really good. He's always in position to catch it. Some physicality issues, like I think maybe he gets moved off his spot a little bit at the catch point, but ultimately, really enticing profile. He was actually used very similarly to how Trey McBride was used at Colorado State, where it's like most of his reps are like out wide or in the slot, occasionally in line, but like really good disbursement of routes run there from all positions. So
that's exactly right. Yeah, in terms of if we're looking at the prototype of or the profile that fits, receiving production at the next level, we're certainly looking at Koziel over Roush. But here's the thing with Koziel. He was 9.4 yards per catch for his career, which is not great. That's not great. He was really highly utilized, but not necessarily that much down the field. So, there's still something that leaves to be desired with Koziel. But yeah, he 6'7" or something like that. I mean, he's about 6'7". Sorry.
And big time production. What do you have like? Oh, sorry, I just got the 6'7" reference. Dang it. Sorry. I have 4 kids, man. That's it's. Yeah, I should have heard it.
Yeah, it's like 6'7". It's like 6'7". I do it for the kids. At this point, what's interesting is our demo is like what 18 to 30 or something like that. That's the guys listening. They hate this fucking 6'7" thing because they're not. It's for literally for 8, 9, 10-year-olds is loving that.
Dude, my 3-year-old runs around the house yelling 6'7". I have no idea why.
Right?
Why are you? You don't even have any remote idea what that is.
Neither do we, but we say it, so it's fine.
It's a LaMelo Ball reference.
I know. I'm just saying right. It means nothing, basically.
Yeah, it means nothing.
Yeah. So yeah. All right. Well, we can end on that. I mean, I don't know. Well, unless you want to talk about quarterback that was at the Senior Bowl, I don't think there was anybody.
Oh, sure.
There, you mentioned one guy that you liked, so go ahead and
I'll just say like Diego Pavia is a really interesting prospect. On one hand, he's 5'10" and he's a complete jerk. Like a legit asshole. Nobody likes him. Like everyone hates him. So, and by that I mean media people, right?
Yeah.
Like he's does not have a likable personality, at least on camera. It seems like NFL people and players do actually really like him. Like so I think he's got a little Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel to his personality, where it's like he will endear you if you're lining up in the trenches with him.
Right.
Like if you're a reporter or especially like a female reporter, I just think you do not like this guy. So I'll start with that. 5'10" and not a likable dude. However,
right, the
arm talent is exceptional. Some of the throws he put on tape at Vanderbilt, unbelievable. And he backed it up at Senior Bowl week where it was a dime show, dime after dime. And it's just like, hold it. My goodness, man. Like it's really hard to juxtapose what you can get out of him versus the 5'10" thing. Well, he's actually a hair under 5'10", if we're being honest.
I was going to say he's 5'10" on tippy toes.
Yeah. I think he's 5'9" and 7/8 is what his official measurement was. So, and then the personality issues. So I don't know what to make of this guy. I think about it like this. Dylan Gabriel was a 3rd-round pick last year. He's 100 times better than Dylan Gabriel. So if a team can buy in on the character part of it, which I can't, I don't know him personally. I don't even know people that know him personally. So I can't verify that for myself. But if a team buys in on that component of it, I could see him being a day 2 pick.
Interesting. Yeah, it's crazy because he don't, you know, you're right. This past season, like what they were able to accomplish at Vanderbilt was pretty incredible. Pretty
Yeah.
incredible. And he was really great. He's a 4-year starter. He ticks a lot of boxes. Certainly the one that he doesn't tick is the height. He actually the box he needs is one to stand on in that particular so sorry about
I love that.
that might be the show title. Diego Pavia standing on box or something. I don't know. But no, it's like, that's a problem. But the college attempts, what's weird too is his completion percentage 53, 60, 59, all bad. And then this last year over 70% completion percentage. So I don't know, man. Something clicked for him. But I'm not so sure that everything is in line for him to be an NFL quarterback, especially of course
Yeah.
the 5'10" is a big problem at that size in the NFL. I don't know that a team is going to want to, it's like you got to be Kyler Murray to kind of like, afford that. And even Kyler has had problems, of course, to the point where they're giving up on him. So
Yep.
I'm not so sure it works. Who was your
Agreed.
other guy? Didn't you have someone else that you liked?
At the Senior Bowl,
Cole Payton?
yeah, I could throw Cole Payton out there. I thought Payton, acquitted himself very well. He's a very puzzling prospect because he's a 5th-year quarterback, all at North Dakota State, and did not play until his 5th
I
year of
saw
college,
that.
which is a weird because it's such a small school. You'd
Right.
think that a guy with that arm talent and athleticism would have started as at least a sophomore, right?
Right.
So I don't know what's up with that. I actually talked to Thor about it a little bit. He had some weird explanation, but I don't know.
No,
So
that's what I saw. Like his final year was 71% completion, 12 yards per attempt. Like,
he can sling it.
his
Dude can
PFF
throw.
passing grade was 94.6. Like
Yeah,
all these metrics are like, oh wow, we have a good player. And then you look, he's a 5th-year senior with like, what did he have? Like
300 pass attempts.
yeah, like 40 pass attempts in his first 4 seasons. It's like
Yep.
the guy is waving a giant red flag.
Yeah, and he's not like he's small. Like if he's like 5'9", you're like, oh, we waited till
Right.
forever to play him. He finally earned it. No, he's like 6'2", 225, and he's built like a freaking fire hydrant. Like he actually is built similarly to me. Super thick, like really, really thick, hard to tackle. A lot of big time runs on tape, big time throws. Like really good player. It's just the profile is weird. So
Interesting. Well, all that's the reason why this class is down a little bit, because that's what we're grasping onto is, Cole Payton, a guy, 5th-year starter from North Dakota State, and a Diego Pavia, 5'9", quarterback with a bad attitude. So, God bless us. We're having fun out here. But I think there's a lot of wide receivers. I love that you're on to Omar Cooper and Casey Concepcion. I think those are more prototypical NFL players than, we think they are, because those are the guys that the NFL loves, guys who can get open quick, and in Omar Cooper's case, break some tackles. So, bro, another outstanding episode from Brett Whitefield. Thank you for taking so much time. Dude, my people love it. Everybody listening to this program can't get enough. They absolutely love it. You were great. Thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can find your awesome work. I just mentioned the article I saw. That and more is where.
Yeah. Data.fantasypoints.com is my baby. I created the Fantasy Points data suite. I didn't do the dev work behind it, but I created the idea of it. I run the whole data team at Fantasy Points. I also have 2 podcasts. First Read with Joe Marino of the Locked On Network. That's just an NFL and analytics show. We do film. It's good stuff. And then Theo Greminger and I have a draft podcast called the 2026 NFL Draft Show. You can find it on Spotify. Just search 2026 NFL Draft and it will pop up. So Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, those are the best ways to support me.
There you go. Thank you so much. And on behalf of everybody here at The Undrafted, on behalf of everybody here at OTC, on behalf of the greatest podcast producer to ever walk the land, Mr. Michael P. Duncan, you have been joined by the great Brett Whitefield. I am Jax Falcone, and we are out.